The entire back of the blaster revolves around this rear plate piece. This is where the stepper motor mounts, the pusher mechanism is underneath, as well as the PCBs for the stepper driver and the particle photon mount on this board as well. So we'll grab this trigger wiring harness. So it's a orange, blue, green, black, red cable that connects the trigger PCB to the particle PCB. This channel that the wire rides in right here points towards the back of the blaster. When you insert this female header piece into the side of this piece, the yellow or orange cable points up towards the back of the blaster. So just slide it in from the side until it stops, and then the wires run through that channel to the back. And then your stepper motor holds those wires into place, so it mounts here. Orient it in such a way that the wires for the stepper motor go out the opposite side that this connector is. When you place it down in here, make sure you're not pinching these wires here too. You don't want to damage them when you tighten down the stepper motor. And then the motor attaches with 4 M3 hex head screws. So like the motors up front, tighten these somewhere between like hand snug and hand tight. The motor does vibrate around a little bit, so you don't want those screws to loosen up. This little short green wiring harness is the pusher switch for back here that tells the FDL-2 when the pusher mechanism is all the way back in kind of a home position. So slide the connector through the hole, and then the switch mounts in an opening for it right there, and it should hold it in place pretty well. And then there's a cap piece that goes over the top of that holds the pusher switch in place and also provides a little bit of a guide for the back of the pusher. And that's held in place with 2 3/8 machine screws. Alright, and then the pusher mechanism is made up of these 2 pieces. So you have a round spinner that attaches to the shaft of the motor, and then you have this kind of T-shaped pusher piece that mounts onto there. This creates what's called a Scotch yoke. So there's a post that mounts here. It's a 3/4 inch machine screw and a washer, and then this small cylindrical bushing piece. As you tighten it down, try to keep the washer centered on the post. So then, once this is on the motor, as it spins, you can see the plunger goes forward and back. Now on the spinner piece, there is a set screw on one side, and on one side of the stepper motor there's a flat spot. So mount the spinner so that the flat spot and the set screw match up. I'm going to very loosely tighten that right now because we're going to adjust that height later. Alright, and then on the other side, we'll grab this piece, which is the PCB mounts. So you have your control PCB and the stepper motor PCB, and what happens is these slide into the mount like that, and they'll push down and kind of snap into place. We'll put those in a minute. But right now, so this can mount either way, it's the same on either side. So put the stepper wire through, then down, and again be careful that these wires in this channel aren't getting pinched by this piece as you're putting it on. And this connects with 4 3/8 machine screws. Okay, once you have that together, we will put the stuff on the PCBs. So this PCB with the connections all around the outside is the one that the particle photon sits in. Mount the particle photon on there in such a way that the USB connector on this side is opposite the connections on the end. Looks like that. And then the stepper driver board, you put the stepper driver in such a way that the chip on the board faces this connection on this side. Like that. I'll probably ship these kits with these already installed, but if you're putting this together yourself, then that's helpful. And then once you have that in place, you can put the boards right into the mount, and they kind of snap down into place. And then this one, the USB connector, goes out to the right side of the blaster, and then up front, the stepper driver side mounts on the left. Alright. And then the green wire from the pusher switch goes in the bottom corner connection down here, and it's labeled PLG. On the FDL-1, I called the pusher a plunger, but I've taken to calling it a pusher now. And then these wires from the trigger assembly on the side, the one with the 4 wires goes in the top on the left, and then the one with the 1 orange wire goes right underneath it in the spot labeled ADV. There you go. And then we grabbed the connection wire that goes between the control PCB and the stepper PCB, and then that goes in the only connections that have 6 pins on either side. Okay. And then you can plug the stepper motor into the stepper driver board as well. That's that spot with the 4 pins. And then coil this up a little bit and tuck it and the control harness into the side behind this tab. There you go. Okay, now once you have all that together, we can ultimately slide this right into the front of the blaster. What I'm going to do is take the right side panel and attach that first so that we have something to attach the back half to. So this attaches with 2 3/8 machine screws to start. Okay. And get these wires kind of out of the way. Then the back piece slides, you can slide the pusher right into the guide. And then these tabs go up over the bottom like that and kind of rest around the outside of that pusher guide. So then we can flip it over and attach it all in the back here too. Again, 2 3/8 machine screws. Actually, one more. Alright, so there we go. We've got the front connected to the back. Before we get too far here, I want to adjust the height of this pusher so that it's lined up exactly between the guide in the front and the guide in the back. So I'm going to loosen up the set screw on the motor and kind of give it a couple turns back and forth, and it'll start to line itself up. And then tighten it up. And once you get it in the right spot, you should be able to really easily spin that stepper motor around, and the pusher will move back and forth. Then once we get that in place, we can start putting the handle on. One thing I want to put on first is the front piece of the wire guard here. So this will be a 3/8 machine screw. I'm going to put it in the hole ahead of time, and then take that machine screw and put it in between the 2 battery leads. I'm actually going to grab the longer screwdriver for this. Now we'll get the handle attached there. We need to get the button in the handle first. So how this works, there's a nut and a lock ring that goes on the switch. So you slide this through the front and then put that kind of lock ring and then the nut. And then turn the nut onto the switch. So a little bit of a small space in there, but you should be able to get it. And then to finish, I usually hold the button in place and then use your needle nose pliers to tighten it up a little further. And then this wire you push down inside the handle a little bit, and then it goes underneath these two tabs on the side that hold the wire in place. Then leave maybe like a ½ inch of wire sticking out. And then we'll attach the first side of the handle to the opposite side of the blaster. Attaches again with 2 3/8 machine screws. Alright, before we get too far, I did want to slide out the stepper PCB and hook up the power. So these two leftover power leads come right off the battery. One goes into the stepper board, and that powers the stepper motor. The other one's going to go to your voltmeter on the back of the blaster. But for right now, I want to hook up power to the stepper board. And push it back in. And I'm also going to hook up the ESC cable to the control board too. So this one I'm going to feed around this side and then fold it back and forth a couple times to shorten this. I think in the bundles that I send out I'll probably make this cable a little shorter and make a few tweaks to all the wires. And then plug that in, and that goes in the only spot on the control board that has 3 pins. Alright. And then we will put this side panel on. So the side panel has an opening right here that the trigger wire goes through. So just feed that through and make sure that the wire stays underneath these tabs that hold it in place. Alright, and that goes on with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 3/8 machine screws. Oh, and another thing, the female header that we put in earlier should go into this rectangular opening here too. It should stick out just far enough from the side of the blaster to fit through the slot on there. Alright, now that we've got the side panel on, we can actually install the handle PCB. So on the back there's 5 pins that go into that female header piece, and it should just slide in super easy like that. And then the wire from the trigger button plugs into the 2 spots on the board like that. Alright, and then we can install the cap on the side here. And that's 2 3/8 machine screws again. Okay, and then we'll install the 3 knobs. So the fire mode knob is a little 3D printed knob, and if you look at the back, there's a circle with a flat spot on it, so just match that up to the rotary switch on here. And then you just push it down into place. It kind of friction fits on there real nice. And then the other two knobs have 2 set screws in them. So you just match the set screws with the flat spots on the knob. Okay. One more thing, we didn't put this screw in down here, and this is a 3/4 inch machine screw that goes in here. And then we'll attach the rest of the wire guard here. So it's a 1-inch machine screw. The back of the guard matches up with the holes on the back of the handle. And you have this pivoting guard kind of thing. Make sure that closes and it kind of latches into place. Then you can get it open easily. If it's tough to close on there, you can file or sand down the little nubs on the inside of this piece. It'll help it close up a little easier. Alright, so at this point in time, it's actually a good time to start plugging in the battery and testing some stuff out. So I've got a battery here. Yours may be a little different depending on what you get. This particular one is a 1300 milliamp hour, 20 to 30 C discharge, 3-cell LiPo battery. So the battery slides into the handle. You can kind of curl your charging wire up and put it at the end of the battery. Before you plug this in, make sure that the power is off, and then plug it in. Make sure you hold the actual plug while you do it. That's pretty good. When you go to unplug your battery, make sure you're holding this plug and that you're not pulling against the wires. Like we looked at before, those wires can slide back and forth a little bit, so you don't want to yank on them, otherwise you may pull stuff apart inside the blaster. It's better to just kind of hold that connector and pull the battery out. So get that back in place. You should be able to close it right up. So obviously this blaster's been together before. I'm pretty confident about this, but if this is the first time that you're starting this thing up, it's a good idea to have the electronics cover off, have things kind of exposed so that you can just look and make sure that everything's good when you boot it up. I'm actually going to plug the voltmeter right into here too, so I know how much juice I have in my battery and make sure that that's at a safe level too. So I'm going to turn this down all the way down to single fire mode, and I'm going to turn all the knobs down, get everything down as low as it can go, and then start it up. Here we go. So you should hear the 3 tones and then 1 longer tone, and that 1 longer tone means that the ESCs have booted up and initiated properly and everything's good to go. So if you look right now, I have 11.6 volts on the battery. That's actually a pretty good spot. I never let my batteries get below 11 volts. You could potentially let them get down a little lower, but I like to keep mine in a good range. Alright, so take one good quick inspection. Make sure nothing is like super hot when it's plugged in and it's just running idle. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the speed knob up to like 1/4 speed. If it's all the way down, it actually won't fire. You need to turn it up just a little bit. It's almost like a safety mode. The rate of fire speed is fine all the way down. So now, if I pull the trigger real quick, everything spins up. So you should be able to hold it down and make sure that you see the pusher move underneath. Everything looks good. And then you pull the trigger in short little bursts and see which way the flywheels are spinning. They're actually both spinning the correct direction. I was sort of hoping I could show you how to switch it. If they were not, you could turn the blaster off and then pull these wires through a little bit, and then like I mentioned before, you would just switch 2 of the wires and then the motor would spin the other way. Alright, so everything looks good. Let's try. 2, 3, everything looks great. So let's turn it off and let's finish everything up. Okay, so the last finish off pieces, we will do the electrical cover. There's actually two parts to the electrical cover. I've already super glued this into place, so I can't show you putting a separate piece in. But you just have this flat kind of nameplate. It fits into the opening on the back of the electronics cover. It friction fits pretty tight, but it is a good idea to put like some super glue or maybe some light epoxy or something there. And then the voltmeter slides right into this opening. It should be a fairly snug fit, but you should be able to push it all the way through until it's nice and flush. And then this thing, like you did with the ESC wire on the other side, you can go back and forth a couple times with it. Just to kind of hold it in place. And then if all your wiring is good and managed, you put the cover on by pushing from the back forward. So it squeezes all these wires in, and then you can clip it up front. That should be pretty easy. If you have any resistance to putting the cover on, it means that you got wires under there. And then to hold it in place, we've got two 1/2-inch machine screws. I printed little thumb screws for this. I'll probably add that later too. And that just screws in, and there's openings in the back of the cover that just hold it in place. And then we have to put on the wire covers up here. So what you can do is push these wires back into the body of the blaster. And get them down as flat as you can. And then these covers just kind of go on here. There's a little bit of a nub on the back of the cover that fits into this angle on the magwell. And then that just screws into place with a 3/8-inch machine screw. Same thing on the other side. Alright, and then we'll grab the cover, the guard for the flywheels here, and that is held into place with 4 1/2-inch machine screws. And there you go. There is one other piece, and that is this tactical rail that goes up here. This particular model is a little bit older, and I hadn't worked in this tactical rail yet. But if this were newer, there would be 2 holes in the top of the magwell, and you could screw in the tactical rail on the top. That would go in with 3/8 machine screws as well. And then there will be openings in the back of here, screw holes for a stock adapter. Something like this. This is not the final version, but that's basically what you get. And then you could put like a regular Nerf stock onto it for now, and I'll eventually design a stock specific for the FDL-2. So everything looks good, everything's working really well. Hopefully the same thing goes for the build that you just completed on your end too. So thank you again for watching.